Why, hello there! Not exactly a poltergeist reference, but our little story continues.
Epic fail.
The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
This whole retro tube TV, whatever you want to call this, has taken a rather introspective turn since the last video. I've had to come to grips with some hard realities and finally getting some closure to some questions I've had since my childhood and adolescence when it comes to old technology. And the process is still ongoing, as you're going to see in this video. It is most unfortunate for many of us that we remember the so-called good old days as better than they actually were, because we just didn't have the life experience to really compare them to anything. So, as far as we knew, things were great. But you get older, you get wiser, and in my generation's case, with all these retro electronics, you are able to come back across stuff from your past that finally gives you the part 2 of the story, and in some cases, turns off the TV. First off, since I found out the hard way that the tripod might muffle some of the microphones in the camera last time, we're going to put the camera back in this little thing, so hopefully everything stays consistent with the sound this time. And by consistent, hopefully not consistently bad. The first tough reality that I had to deal with concerns the venerable Nintendo 64. So we know from before that in my childhood and adolescence, I was using a third-party RF switch. I have found out since then that it indeed was third-party. Nintendo had a modulator for the N64 that let you hook an N64 up to a NES or a SNES's RF switch. So, yeah. That basically means what I thought was right channel only mono, howdy folks, in this old TV was actually being made into right channel only mono by the RF switch. So my question is, did this newer RF switch actually have the ability to transmit stereo over RF, unlike Nintendo's official RF switches from the 1990s? So I decided for the first time ever to hook something up to the RF on the Sanyo and get that answer for myself. No! It doesn't send stereo, even to a stereo TV. What an embarrassment. So all this time, unless I set the game to mono, I was listening to N64 games with messed up sound. It's just... so needless to say, yeah. Anyways, if you use the Super Nintendo's RF switch, that basically will convert everything over to mixed mono, so the channels will be mixed together. But wow, there was an official RF modulator for the N64, and I never had it. I never got to use it, and so on games where you couldn't change between stereo and mono, if there were any, the experience was degraded. One of the things that I also found some closure on is that the Super Nintendo can actually do RF and AV out at the same time. I don't know if that might stress the power supply or anything, but two TVs of Super Mario World at the same time? Anyone? It is interesting looking at these side by side and seeing the differences between the old school curved CRTs and stuff like that, like what I grew up with, being able to use the fine tune on the volume on the channel tuner knob to slightly adjust the picture when you only have an RF switch, and of course had to be reminded of that. And then at the same time, on the newer TVs, some of the geometry issues cause things to scroll kind of weirdly across the screen. Yeah, I think in the 2000s, CRT manufacturers were trying a little too hard to make something that was flat screen by any means necessary, even if it essentially created a weird lens effect with their own TVs here. But the Sanyo is fine and dandy as is. It's the Daewoo that I have unanswered questions about from here on out. So, RF issues aside, old TV issues aside, and of course you could always just keep turning this the other way until the channel went completely out of focus, or went completely out of tune. Analog television, baby. The problem is I don't know what is right. I mean, I could even tune it to where it's black and white if I set it right. Yeah, like almost entirely black and white. But the big question here is, with RF, old school curved screen TVs and things along those lines, I have plenty of unanswered questions about the Daewoo. Beginning with, of course, that screen that's always been a little off to the side. Is there something inside this TV that I can turn with a screwdriver to move the screen over? I know the hold controls on a lot of these old TVs were often on the outside as knobs, but it took a technician to adjust the picture on the inside. So I'm wondering if I could fix the longest running problem with this old TV by taking a look on the inside. And of course we can also check out the completely shot potentiometer knob as well. Let's see here. Well then, our Tube TV story continues. We have now come to the part of the video that my stepmother's gonna hate. She always thought this was a cute little TV, but it's time to take a look at this thing and remove this unnecessary analog broadcasting garbage. You know, it may look the part with the loop antenna and the half rabbit ears, but I think it's time for it to go. We gotta figure out how it all went together. And yeah, all the twisting and turning has already taken one side of the loop antenna off, so we'll get that off and we'll see how this case comes off, and we'll take a look at the inside of a tube for the first time in a very long time. Okay, this thing is looking a lot cleaner without the unnecessary, useless antennas that won't pick up anything anymore. The VHF rabbit ears was a twist-on, so I just twisted it the other way and it came right off. Then I just put a screwdriver to the terminals to get rid of the loop antenna, things along those lines. It's time to open the case on this thing. Before we do, though, I cannot emphasize enough that anything that runs off of a CRT is incredibly dangerous. CRTs, in order to properly power them, require a high voltage circuit that gets into the tens of thousands of volts. Do not do anything with a CRT unless you know what you're doing or have an electronics background or whatnot. This technology is a lot more dangerous than its successor. So there's a reason why there's this big warning. Where is it? There's a warning on here that says, don't open it, hazardous voltages inside. Ah, it's up here. It's indented into the case. It's not even on with a label. Caution, caution, risk of electric shock, do not open. Warning, shock hazard, do not open. There's a reason why that warning exists, and a reason why electronics used to be a formal field of study when I was growing up. And I went through it. So, fortunately, what I'm looking for is probably nowhere near the tube. So, we're not touching the tube, that's for sure. Alright, the back cover is off. Got on a towel so I don't scratch the glass. Just took the back cover off and cleaned out about 30 years worth of dust. It's like doing the dishes once you get the plastic separate from the rest of the device. Now we're going to let that air dry, because it absolutely needs to air dry, because here is what the inside of a tube TV looks like. We're going to try and lay this down again. The dangerous part is the power supply and the high voltage power that goes to that suction cup on the tube. So that's the high voltage. You want to stay away from that. This thing with the wires going out it right here is the flyback transformer. That's the one that causes the smoke show when it goes. What I want to do, I want to very carefully lay this down on its side. I have seen people running these things without the back covers on before. So we'll blow out some of that pet hair and other crap in the bottom, and we'll try and lay this thing down. I want to see if there's an adjustment somewhere. Here's the picture adjustments right here. Is there something nearby that I can turn with a screwdriver that adjusts the position on the screen? We'll take a look at the circuit over on the tube itself. But yeah, do not try this at home, especially the dangerous bit right there. It's one of the reasons why I prefer LCDs over CRTs these days. You know, they're always were drawbacks to anything involving vacuum tubes, and this was one of the last holdouts before TVs finally went solid state. Alright, I've looked all over this main board. These knobs, these adjustable settings right here are not what we're looking for. That's for things like the cutoff and the intensity of the red, green, and blue in the tube. These are not on there. The adjustments on the flyback transformer are not what we're looking for either. What we're looking for, see if I can get it on here without putting the camera up against the main board. Looking for is those little tiny things that you adjust with a small screwdriver. The orange thing, the ED, whatever it is. That's the gain control for the tuner. That's not what we're looking for. The horizontal hold, which might be what we're looking for, is unfortunately on the more dangerous part of the motherboard. And you got to be careful with horizontal holds, because taking it too far out of spec can actually destroy parts of the TV. I don't know if I even want to proceed with this, and I have a background in technology. There's a reason why I hate CRTs and never like working with them, and it's because of all this extra crap you gotta worry about. Like that high voltage suction cup over there. I don't know. Maybe CRTs are a technology that we should just let die. Or, better yet, do what everybody's doing, run them into the ground. The potentiometer, though, to get it not so scratchy, is right over there by the speaker. That might be a lot more safe than this other stuff here. I don't know. I really don't. Yeah, I'm not proceeding with this. This is too awkward and too dangerous for only one person to do. That underneath the tube, that orange thing with the Phillips head thing there, that's the horizontal hold potentiometer right underneath the freaking tube. Oh boy. No, we're not touching that. It's very, not only do we not want to fry something, don't want to get zapped, etc., at the very same time, the position of this horizontal hold underneath the tube itself fundamentally means that I need a second person. I'm going to have to bring, I think there's a couple of electronics folks around here who fixed televisions professionally before that might still be willing to deal with a CRT. I'm going to see if I can get a hold of some of them, see what they would charge and whatnot. I'll go down with the Super Nintendo and everything. I'll show them where the darn thing is. I'll take the back off for them and everything. One person is going to have to turn the screwdriver while another person looks at the image, because it's very awkward and probably rather dangerous for one person to do by themselves. So let's get this thing back together. There we go. How about a little Tecmo Super Bowl on 2 screens at once to round everything out? Featuring the old 90s football rivalry between the fans of the Dallas Cowboys and the fans of the San Francisco 49ers, which strangely enough was present in my hometown in Connecticut. We had Cowboys fans and 49ers fans egging each other about, oh, Troy Aikman's going to go to the Super Bowl. No way, Steve Young's going to go to the Super Bowl. And figured it'd be a nice little throwback, since we're getting kind of nostalgic here, just to have a computer versus computer game going on screen while we talk about all this. It's kind of cool. This whole CRT thing's cool and all, seeing the differences between the old bubble screens and the newer flat screens during the last attempt at CRTs to compete with the LCDs of their era. Stuff along those lines. There were attempts to make flat CRTs, but it didn't work out so well because of the physics involved. They're talking about a gigantic vacuum tube here, so that's another story altogether. The big thing here, though, is I could have reached in very, very carefully with some high voltage gloves and and a little Phillips bit to turn that little potentiometer and fix the horizontal on this thing. The problem is, I think the risk-reward isn't really worth it. The TV is perfectly functional except for the completely fried potentiometer for the volume. And we can bypass the built-in speaker entirely these days and just run the sound as something else, and just use this as a monitor. There's nothing else we're going to put through this except for video games. So the fact that this still works as well as it does after all this time is really, it's really a marvel. The old technology just has some serious longevity to it, until, of course, the flyback transformer blows up or something like that and takes everything out with a bang, like my first tube monitor did back in the day. So, yeah, it's interesting, but, I mean, this is the last hurrah for CRTs with me. I'm not going to go wild with CRTs anymore. By the time these 2 tubes are finally dead, there'll probably be a very decent low input lag flat panel technology that's affordable, probably OLED or one of its successors. But for now, let's just enjoy these antiques, these electronic antiques, as long as we can, while this stuff is still viable like this. So, especially the Sanyo, which barely got a chance to even be a TV in the first place. So, I am more than capable of fixing the screen in the Daewoo, but I don't think it's worth it. Especially when you think about, I could fry myself, I could fry the TV, all this other stuff. I think it would be much more worth it to see if any local electronics folks who worked on CRTs back in the day would want to, show me the ropes with this kind of stuff. Kind of be a nice walk down memory lane and stuff. There's a reason why folks like myself moved on to LCDs the first chance we got, and it is the pokey nature, the power consumption, and the high voltage crap, stuff like that had a lot to do with it. But hey, one last dose of retro with whatever still works, why not? But I just as soon swap both of these for my old Samsung TV and stuff like that too. We're just gonna chill with some Tecmo Super Bowl here and have fun with this retro setup. We still have to get back to literally the entire rest of my setup and the Geek House in general being completely torn apart right now in order to continue making progress. But for now, at least we took a look inside the Daewoo and we cleaned out a lot of the dust. That'll probably do something for it, even if I couldn't get a little bit in there to turn that potentiometer to fix the screen. Until next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.
Round 52.